All right. So we are officially live right now for our first episode of Fast Forward, brought to you by CAD Management and Austere Visuals. So I got my colleague, friend, amazing designer, entrepreneur, Natasha here. So yeah, Natasha, tell them a little bit about yourself and what Austere does.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much. And I'm super stoked to be here. I'm very excited about what we've got going on with Fast Forward. So Austere, our main focus is really visual identity. We call ourselves an Avant Visual Identity Agency. So we really work on visual development for brand identities of brands, musicians. We do 360 rebrands for anyone who's looking for it. Obviously, that falls into so many different things. And we create content for releases. We know kind of best practices, what comes into it. I was a creative director at Sony Music beforehand and kind of drilled into my head kind of best practices across the board for musicians and really helping them understand how to make themselves the most iconic version of, what they're doing and how they're expressing their music and through their mind's eye, developing it in a visual perspective. So that's what we're about. And that's what we like to do.
Love it. And for everybody who doesn't know, CAD Management, we are a small independent music management and entertainment consulting firm. We work with brands, artists, technology companies, really across the spectrum. And I'm really excited today. I've known both of these panelists that we got to come on our first episode. Justin here is probably one of the most amazing experiential marketing minds I've personally come across. And then you got Jordan Baley, who not only as an independent manager has amazingly has he been able to build a record from an independent record label to #1 on Urban AC Radio with Jordan Banks. But in addition, his catalog of A&R and entertainment consulting is just as impressive. So really excited to bring both these guys in. We got Jordan and Justin Moss of Pineapple Agency. So good to have you guys here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Excited to be here. Nice to meet you, Jordan.
Nice to meet you too, Justin. Clay, thank you for having me. Natasha as well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I'm just looking forward to it. Looking forward to bringing it today.
Amazing, guys. So just to start off, why don't we start with you, Justin? Kind of give us a little bit of background about the Pineapple Agency and some of the recent work that you guys are doing, maybe pre-COVID and then post-COVID.
Sure. So the Pineapple Agency is based here in Denver. We're an experiential creative event agency. I started my career 20 plus years ago producing concerts and music festivals. So at the forefront of multi-day music festivals. Today, the agency works on experiential campaigns. So basically bringing emotional connections to brands from consumers through live experiences. And that could be PR stunts, out-of-home strategies, live events, the whole thing. And then we still very much are work in the entertainment industry and love it and passionate about it. We work on 17 festivals a year for Insomniac Entertainment, which is the largest EDM music festival producer in the world. And we've been with them about 6 years and work on a lot of different entertainment programs as well. Some of the most recent, so one of my favorite experiential campaigns that we did before COVID was we delivered Steph Curry's new sneakers by drones off of yachts in the San Francisco Bay. And consumers got to find the landing zones by doing a digital scavenger hunt. And that amounted to about 190 million impressions by the time it was said and done. During COVID, we've been working on a lot of digital streaming, out of home planning for when this is all over. We are still very much working on experiential events and festival planning as of right now, but doing a lot of strategic work on health and safety and the new guidelines and how to keep not just the consumers safe, but the artists safe and, working with local and federal governments on figuring out best practices. So the whole nine. I mean, I love the digital space. Obviously, we're here today because of it, but I'm a big believer in events and experiences have to come back and will come back. So we're just gearing up and ready for it.
Oh, you're muted, Clay.
And yeah, Jordan, why don't you give us just a little bit of background on Golden Community and some of the work that you guys have been doing, post or pre-COVID and now post.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to start off, I would say we really operate in the creative strategy, event curation, and touring space. Essentially, we're a combination of each of those. So, depending on the artist, we go out and we find we do like a deep dive into the artist, what they need at the time, and then we're able to offer services such as digital marketing. Coordinating with the talent buyers from city to city around, on the local level, regional level, and national level as well. And that's where we really have hung our head on for 2019 specifically. But, coming into this year, it was the same approach on our end as a business. And I'm really excited to actually see post-COVID what we're able to do from a content side, a concert side, tour management. What we're doing right now is just making sure that we're retaining a lot of the artists we've been working with over the past year. Last year, we were able to do 36 shows around the country in major cities such as New York, LA, Atlanta, and Chicago. So we've been in that circuit now for the last 18 months, really doing well there. Post-COVID, I would think that the size of a lot of shows is going to shrink at first. I think more people will feel comfortable going to venue capacity sizes that are between 200 to 300 to start. And then I think that we'll see a lot of the bigger concerts in mid to large size venues come back eventually once people warm up to the climate again. So yes, it's just a little bit about what we do and my initial thoughts on post-COVID and the music and entertainment industry.
Amazing. Yeah, well, thank you both for coming on, and I'll hand it off to Natasha for just some initial thought starters.
Yeah, no. So, the first question that we're kind of going to go through is very much focused on demographics and kind of how people are feeling. So ultimately, marketing used to be based around demographic categories or social archetypes, but the more marketers and digital platforms that know about you, the more personalized they can become in terms of like both messaging and products. So what role do you think big data and leveraging that data for personalization is going to play in curating the entertainment experience of the quarantined music consumer? And to dive in a little bit deeper, do you think these consumers are more hypersensitive to good curation due to the additional amount of time that they're consuming entertainment at home?
Yeah, great question. Do you want me to go first, Jordan, or you want to take it?
Yeah, you can jump in first if you would like to.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, I think, well, for one, we at the Pineapple Agency, we're data geeks. I mean, we want to absorb as much data as we can, not just about our consumer that we're targeting, but the brands that we're working with, whether it's a big, consumer brand or it's a musical artist. And so we're believers that you take that data and you curate the right experience, both online and in real world, to that person. I think that we're living in a very strange situation right now, as we all know. And I think that humans are consuming so much content right now at a rate that nobody ever thought about. So I think that, yes, taking that data and curating the right experience digitally is what you want to do. But I think that everybody's working to just get as much content out as you possibly can, that it's super, super hard to dial in that curation when you're trying to get it out that fast. But with that being said, the consumer's still going to like what they like. So if they like a certain musical artist, they're going to drive to that musical artist. But as a good example, I mean, if you look at Global Citizens, live event, to raise money for lots of great organizations, they had a very mixed batch of musical artists. They had a mixed batch of late night television hosts. So they weren't curating to one demographic. They were going very broad strokes. And the same thing with like Bud Light's, concert series. Like in full disclosure, they are my client, but we don't have anything to do with their digital series. They're doing everything from country to rock and roll. So I think it's just pushing that data out, or content out, and giving the fans something to be happy and think positive about in this time. That's it. Hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely makes sense. Jordan, do you want to kind of pipe in? Oh, and you're muted.
Yes, definitely. I want to say I totally agree with what Justin, pointed towards. I also think that, right now, what I'm telling the artists that I work with is, let's pull it down and let's simplify things, because we really don't, we can do some guesswork on what's happening right now, when events and touring opportunities are going to open up right now. But right now, we want to be, kind of eliminate the guesswork and just focus on digital marketing for our artists, and also streaming along the DSPs. And right now, we're seeing, of course, like influencers are, along TikTok. A lot of people are driving in the digital realm, also doing live battles and things like that we're seeing, as well as events like this, virtual events like this. So what we're doing is saying, hey, in the past, when we were curating, let's say, a show or a concert, we were aiming for, let's say, 300, 400, 500 people to come and fill that room. And now what we can do is say, hey, we can drive 200 people who, may or, who are in the house, right now because of COVID, and drive them to doing like a live stream, drive them to a piece of content that we release on the digital side. And then we're planning on doing other things as well, like, upselling, including merchandise in each artist campaign as well. So that's kind of what we've turned to on the artist development side right now because of the environment that we're in. But yeah, I will also say that it's a huge presence in terms of the brands wanting to be, also dive into the digital side. We're seeing a lot of brands attach themselves to artists to do smaller campaigns, whether they're just for a day or for a week. And we're also seeing online media doing the same as well. Such as with Kelly Rowland and her rollout for Coffee record. She attached her record, I believe, to Essence, and they did a cool digital rollout. So I think it's it's definitely challenging right now, but brands are still paying and jumping into that digital space, which is great for music. And I think the numbers point to that.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say that, musicians in general are really kind of focusing more on quality content that they can put out there? Or do you think you're seeing a lot more of just kind of like people, I like to call it panic posting, which is what I've been seeing a lot of. And I think is kind of something that, as agency owners, we try and like tell people to stray away from. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that I see a lot of strategic posting. I see some panic posting as well. But even with the music that's been releasing, a lot of music that is coming out right now is very up tempo. It's fun. Some of it, like Drake's record, the Tootsie Slide, is catered towards TikTok influencers. And then I think which I think is wise right now, because right now we're in the house unconventionally, but we're here. We're glued to our phones or our laptops, or we're looking for educational things, or we're looking to do things together to kind of uplift our mood right now in today's environment. So, Drake's record is aimed at, I think, TikTok influencers and kind of family fun, dancing, being together, and that type of vibe. But additionally, I think that there is some panic posting as well, where it's not educational or it's not really entertaining. It may be pointed towards something that was done in the past. So I see that as well. But what I tell my artists is that let's continue to get the momentum going. Let's take those people who we would reach out to advertise a show, a concert, and let's get creative with it and try to put those fans in the virtual realm, and continuously keep them engaged with you and what you're doing in your music career.
Yeah, and I think just to chime in, I think that one, great. Everything you said, Jordan, is great. I think also what I'm seeing is artists and brands are trying to be super authentic. So they are definitely panic posting for sure in a lot of cases. But I also think some of the panic posting that we think is panic posting is actually them being as real as they can. And I think that it's showing that they're trying to reach out to their fans or their consumers, if it's a brand, and be positive about the situation and show that they are humans and that they are feeling and living the same thing as us. So I think it's great from a marketing and a publicity standpoint, but it's real life. And I think that it earns a lot of them great brownie points when we come out of this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very true.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And on that point too, I think one of the most interesting points that I'm seeing is just how inventive artists are becoming, particularly on the A-list side, right? And I want to make a particular point to what Travis Scott did with Fortnite. It said here that he had about 12.3 concurrent million viewers, which is about 2 million more than Marshmello pulled last year. And I think that number is just so astronomically huge. I don't think a concert in real life could ever hold 12.3 million people, right? So obviously there's something there. But I want to ask both of you, what can we learn from these major activations like what, Marshmello did and what Travis did with Fortnite? And what else can we kind of take from that and assume about the quarantined consumer right now? Because again, 12.3 million people is a lot of people to tune in at once, and the concurrent viewers I heard were just as high. So obviously, Justin, would love to get your thoughts on this to start.
Yeah, well, I mean, I gotta tell you, props to Travis. And his team. What a great campaign. I will say that if you look at the data, pre-COVID, Marshmello did a couple of million under that, right? So I think that if you look at the two data points and the views, they're both impressive, right? But what it tells me is that one, we all know that digital and that type of performance is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. But I wonder how many more millions of viewers would have Travis had if there wasn't hundreds of thousands of other streaming stuff going on worldwide because of COVID. So I think that the popularity is certainly in everybody's favor. But I do believe that post-COVID, you're going to still see those big numbers and maybe even bigger. One, I can tell you I'm a little biased, to be honest, because I'm a believer that nothing will take the place of a live experience or a live event or a concert or a festival. And that's just life, in my opinion. But with that being said, we know that digital is here to stay, like I said, and it's only going to become more real, more authentic. It's only going to become more, interactive. So I'm proud to see it, evolve, and I'm proud to see Twitch and other brands taking it to the next level and constantly pushing boundaries. And of course, from a label standpoint and a manager standpoint and an artist standpoint, why wouldn't you want to try to get into the digital sphere? Because there's always going to be an audience there. Because if you can't get a ticket to a show or a festival, the next best thing is digital.
And Jordan, I'll bounce this over to you. I mean, I'm curious to get your thoughts. I mean, you've worked in hip hop and urban music for a while, and honestly, I really thought that gaming in that space was really reserved for a lot of like pop and EDM artists. And I think Travis really just opened the floodgates to a lot more diverse talent going into gaming. And would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that what Travis did is amazing. Mainly because right now, one of the biggest things artists can do is create phenomenons around themselves. So whether they're releasing a new single, as Travis was, I think right now artists need to just focus on single releases, and then do beneficial things in the digital marketing realm, such as live streaming, syncing their music within a game, syncing their music within a film or a TV show right now. Streaming platforms like Netflix are still doing amazing. Spotify is rolling out new features for artists as well that allow you to tap into different campaigns, like what they're doing with their fundraising now. So now on Spotify, you can actually release a single and intertwine it with Cash App to allow fans from around the world to donate money to your music and what you have going on. So I think there are a lot of creative ways to actually intertwine single releases in your music with the DSPs, with gaming, and things like that. But also with gaming, when you think about, let's say, like NBA 2K, which is a really popular game, you've had in the past DJs like DJ Premier curate the sound for the NBA 2K soundtracks and things like that. So now I think that we're seeing a enhanced version of the past curation from DJs and A&Rs and music supervisors in those spaces, because everyone is inside of their houses, and because we're naturally on social media, and we can still access video games and things like that. They're going specifically to those avenues to do partnerships.
No, I definitely agree. And that kind of leads into, Natasha's next point on touring.
Yeah. So, touring has traditionally always been like the most critical piece of marketing and building the momentum of like an EP or an album. So now that COVID-19 has like completely halted all touring, and according to Live Nation, there may not be shows for, 12 to 18 months. What strategies do artists, labels, managers need to adopt to promote their music without having to impact, touring touch points?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I want to jump into this one, again, in terms of, the virtual live stream arena. I think that's going to be helpful. But I also believe that I agree with Justin. I don't think anything will ever take away the live experience of a concert, or going to your first tour or having that experience for yourself. What I think that artists should do once things begin to open back up and the restrictions release, I think artists should start small. And if you remember, a few years ago, maybe 5 or so years ago now, J. Cole, he did a tour called the $1 and a Dream Tour, in very small venues. And he also came down on the price of his ticket. I think it was just $1 to get in, but it was exclusive, and it created a level of intimacy with J. Cole and his fans. So I think those type of experiences starting off will pop up. I also think that the gaming arena, as we just spoke about, will be a hot spot. I also think that TV series that you can stream will be a hot spot as well, such as Issa Rae's Insecure. And she started a label to become like a hybrid between a label and kind of like music and TV sync platform. So I think we're seeing a lot of those creative things pop up nowadays that are going to become prominent post-COVID.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that, Jordan, because I was thinking the same thing, and I'm glad you used the J. Cole analogy, because I agree. Like, I think that artists should come back on a smaller scale, more intimate scale. I think festivals will come back for sure, but I think for the immediate future, and in reference to the question around, you know, marketing of the music and getting it out there, I also believe in, and I never claim to be a record on the recording arts side of things, and my record label execs and friends will probably, you know, text me and hate me for saying a lot of stuff, but I'm a believer that in this time period, you know, I believe artists should release music much slower than they've released it in the past. You know, generally they release a couple of singles, they gain some traction, the album drops, so on and so forth. But I would say even release it slower and release more singles, or even release their whole album as a single, slower and slower. And the reason I say that is because unless you're Travis Scott or you're super A-list talent, or an A-list artist, you have a good chance of your music at this point being washed away in the clutter, not washed away, let me rephrase, caught up in the noise and the clutter of all the other content that's out there. And so if I was a manager of an artist, or a marketing team of an artist, I would recommend a slow rollout of an album. And then to the point of what Jordan mentioned about video games and digital live performances, absolutely. I mean, you gotta tap into where the eyeballs are. And if the eyeballs are in games, you know, go to games. If your audience is, you know, in goodwill and nonprofit, you know, how can you create a goodwill nonprofit initiative that's digital and tap into maybe a brand that is doing the same thing? I think the single most important thing that we all have to do here is stay positive and stay together. And I think that if the artists kind of keep that focus within their marketing efforts, I think they'll be okay. I think if they come out too strong and almost too pushy, I think they're gonna lose the fans and make them, you know, they're gonna rub them the wrong way.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And that kind of brings me into my next point here is that obviously the global economy, whatever the way people want to cut it, it's either in some sort of recession or teetering on some sort of depression, right? I think the latest economic numbers were 26 million unemployed as of this past week. I think that's the most unemployed since 1917 or something like that. It was honestly, the numbers are just really scary. So, and then also in addition to that, you're looking at a lot of constriction of expenditure cash, right? For people who have disposable income, who once had a lot more to maybe spend that $100 ticket on Billie Eilish or a $15 ticket on an independent artist. So the way I'm seeing it and the future I'm looking at is obviously artist budgets are going to get a lot tighter, because I don't think that the record labels or, you know, the talent agencies or even, you know, Live Nation for that instance are as protected, even though they may have a lot of cash on hand. I don't think they're going to be racing to necessarily spend $500,000 to break a new artist. So Justin, I'll start with you, because I think the brand space is a really important spot right now. How do artists and managers go about breaking their music and getting through that clutter that you're talking about, assuming that they don't have a budget at all, regardless if you're at a label or you're independent? Like the money's just really constricting. So I'm really curious to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that brands are going to come in and start to supplement some of that? Do you think that they're kind of getting constricted and there's just not enough cash to go around? How would you advise some of these artists and managers and labels to kind of go about that?
Yeah, I'd say leave the industry. No, kidding. I forgot we're not a live audience with me, so nobody's laughing at my stupid jokes. But I think that if I was coaching a client or making recommendations both on the artist or the record label or the festival or the brand side, I think that I would say let's try to be how can we be more collaborative? what kind of deals can we work out, or partnerships can we create that haven't been thought about before, or taking, deals that have been done, but rework them so that they benefit and it's more of a win-win situation. Maybe there's an A-list celebrity artist that has a couple of up-and-coming artists on their record label, and there's a partnership to be had for, the A-list to do a quick set on a live broadcast, but then they're, bringing up-and-comers, in a more prevalent way than in the past. Or, definitely brands are underwriting a lot more today, right now, but those are the brands that still have cash. And I think a lot of brands, to your point, are going to start becoming more weary of their cash position and so on. So, I think that you're just going to have to see more collaboration and more smarter deals being done. I think, at least for the time being, artist advances and royalties are going to have to go down. They're going to have to be more realistic of what they're going to get to do a digital campaign or work with a brand. Maybe there's more back-end deals that the brand pays later on. Maybe there's a rev share deal. Post Malone did the Bud Light deal and put his face on every single can. Not saying I know the rev deal or the deal there, but maybe there was a rev share deal, or maybe there could be a rev share deal. So I think if we just get imaginative and understand the situation, we're all in, and we're all in it. Every single one of us are in it. So I think we just need to do our part and make it work. And on the flip side, if whether the brands or the artists or whoever doesn't want to work, then they'll have to seal their fate. Either they'll become, they won't be around anymore, or they won't get the love that they used to, or whatever. I'm obviously speculating. I think the other side of this is, and not to get too, on economics, is there was a great article talking to the CEO of Apple about how COVID has sort of created a man-made recession, right? I mean, we can argue whether we're going into a recession or not, but the argument that he was making, and he calls it a V economy, which I believe is a true economics statement. But basically, the thought process is that after this is all over, there's 25 million people plus out of work in America, and God bless them. I feel bad for every single one of them. I wish I could help every single one of them. I'm blessed I didn't have to lay anybody off. But there's also 185 million people that are still working and still getting paid. So we have to remember that when we're out of this, when we're all, even if it's phased into the society, all those people are going to be spending money. They're going to be going out. They're going to be doing things. Marketers are going to be marketing. Sure. Are we not going to be going and filling arenas and stadiums right now for a couple months? Yeah. And sure, do we have to look out for our fellow Americans that did lose their job? Absolutely. But people are going to be spending money, and it's going to be fast and ferocious, is my opinion and their opinion.
Yeah, and I want to get your opinion on this too, because out of the whole panel here, you have the most experience on the sports world. Assuming that, the NBA still hasn't started yet, right? There's a lot of advertising dollars locked in there right now. Do you think that if the music industry plays their cards right, they could start taking some of the advertising dollars that have traditionally gone to sports and start bringing them into music? Because clearly, like we were talking about before, the Travis Scott numbers show that there's an audience there and there are eyeballs here. So I'm really curious to get your thoughts on that, because, you've worked with the Golden State Warriors and a couple others. So, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this.
I say absolutely. Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think that you're going to start seeing brands chopping up their budgets. They're going to take a lot of money out of the event budget or the event marketing budget. They're going to be putting it to different things, whether it's mission driven in their communities, or I think they're going to go to artists. I think they're going to go, not necessarily artists, but the live streams. I think you're going to start seeing it go to amateur and pro gaming. I think or e-gaming. So yeah, I absolutely think that's going to happen. I think the sports teams are going to fight it, and they're not going to love it. But at the same time, I think they don't have really a choice, because unless those in arena, in stadium dollars or marketing initiatives can come back, the brands are free to do with their money what they want to do. But I think also, with all that being said, it's also a very it's got to be a very what do I want to say, kind of a light walk to doing that, because the brands also don't want to alienate their sports fans that, oh, they've abandoned the Nuggets, they've abandoned the Broncos or the Dolphins, and they're walking away from sports and they're doing e-gaming. So, screw them, this and that. So, and I'm not saying that's happening or gonna happen, but once again, it's a tight walk or tight rope of what, how this all works and how it all plays out, especially in the consumer's mind, because we know that consumers are driven by loyalty. And, especially in music, I think EDM, some of the statistics there, and don't quote me, is, if a brand supports an EDM festival or artist, I think like 70% of those consumers are going to support that brand. That's huge. So you don't want to see a brand that says, screw Marshmallow, I'm going to go to the Denver Nuggets and vice versa. So it's a slippery slope, I think, if that answered your question.
Absolutely. And Jordan, please, jump in here as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I totally agree with what Justin said about loyalty. I mean, and that's one of the main things right now that we're developing amongst the artists that we work with, is that before we rush back into the live event space, let's continue to create brand loyalty in the digital space. And because let's say a few of my artists have like a couple million fans online, 2 or 3 million. My question is, how can we directly target that audience, because they are your fans, they engage with your music already, and build a revenue stream there. On the business side, like I said, we're looking at merchandise, to be able to sell merchandise for each artist campaign. I think that's going to be a big right now, because of course, like online shopping is up right now as well. So that's just a thing that we can shift over from the live event space to online business to consumer style of marketing. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what Justin said. Yep.
I also think it's interesting that you brought that up, because merch is like a great direction to take things, but also like taking it a step further, what are those other types of product pairings that you can use to kind of shift, some of the weight off of people not being able to, go to shows and have that revenue coming in that way. And that kind of leads me to like, okay, well, can musicians come out with their own zine, or, have a picture book that is from past imagery from the past like tour that they did, or something that is more of like a hand holding product that they can have shipped to them, has a download link to it, attached to it, to where you can still like treat it as a conversion opportunity for, music. But it also has that tangibility aspect where you can still charge a premium of like, I don't know, $30, $40. It doesn't cost much to create. And then they have something in addition to clothes, because I feel like, taking it the merch direction is like everyone will probably do that. And you can do like, the limited launches and whatever to kind of create that sort of scarcity. But having more of those unique pairings, or like finding a way to, for a female musician or a male musician who's interested in makeup, find a way to do a pairing in that association where they can still do a strong profit margin, whether it's through drop shipping or adding some sort of logo involved, or actually doing something custom, kind of getting a little bit more creative in the sense of how can they create something that can be delivered and there's, a great replacement, at least in the meantime, or, on and off, in comparison to doing just like getting those tour dates and those shows, covered in expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, Natasha, you bring up a great point. I think merch, and Jordan, you mentioned it too. I think merch is a great example, right? I think that if you do it right and you make it special, or even if you're even unloading your merch that's been created for the tours that got canceled, I think as long as you don't sell the stream, the live stream. And I think that you look for other ways to drive revenue. And I say that for two reasons. I think that if you start charging for the live stream, one, you just kind of look bad in a very bad situation that we're going through. But two, I think you're going to get more eyeballs and you're going to get more goodwill by giving the show away and trying to make it up on merch and special merch, limited edition merch. And I think also to what Jordan says, that could grow your fan base. I mean, if you had 1 million followers and now you have 1 million followers telling another 1 million people, and we all know the numbers don't work this way, to watch your live stream for free, and they happen to love that gig poster, that merch poster that was specially made by an artist, in that artist's hometown area, and maybe supplemented by a brand, the cost, a little bit. I think you're going to sell a lot of posters and get a lot more eyeballs and a lot more followers. And of course, those are all just spitballing fake numbers, but just giving some examples to visualize what I'm saying and examples.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I actually want to go back to the brand side just for a moment again. We are seeing a weird anomaly, I feel like. So according to the recent data from Nielsen, there's actually been a drop in overall music streaming, but there's been a massive boom in like live streams on YouTube, Twitch, etc. So I really want to get the marketer standpoint from, number one, why is there a real drop in actual like digital streaming on the music side? And two, how can brands and artists really take advantage of the YouTubes and the Twitches and these kind of like more live interactive platforms to really get their music out there? Justin, I'll start with you because you've had a lot of experience dealing with a lot of live streamings.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, well, one, I mean, I can't pinpoint exactly why streaming has declined. My guess is I believe that, like I said earlier, there's so much content out there, and there's so much content that we'll never be able to see again in our lifetime, and what I mean by that is, I saw the other day that Dave Grohl jumped in on a Zoom meeting for, I think it was a retail store or something, and started singing a Foo Fighters song to a huge fan. Like, we're never, Dave Grohl does things like that, but traditionally we're never going to see that kind of stuff again. And I think that we're only going to get that from the YouTubes and the live broadcasts and the Zoom meetings and stuff like that. So I think that most people are focusing their energy and their time on video. I think the other side of it is, I think people are looking for distractions. They don't want to be stuck at home. So because video is more of a distraction. Now, I am personally one of those people that can throw on a record and listen to it and sit in my own head and think and dream and be imaginative, but not everybody's like that. So I think that, watching video is key. As far as like the brand side of things, I think that you're looking at some really, really creative things. And I think that it goes back to what I said earlier. I think that artists need to attach themselves to brands and do fun things that are different and creative and what we would call guerrilla, but we're doing it in the digital world. And I think that, the brands have, not necessarily the money, but they have the followers. If a big beer brand does a live webcast with an artist, they're going to get more followers if it's a lesser known artist, because the beer brand has those followers as loyal brand consumers. So I think that it's just creating special partnerships that get that music out there, or get those performances out there. And I think Jordan mentioned it earlier, when DJ Premier would curate the NBA game. I think that that's also a great, move. I mean, could artists curate certain levels of, Fortnite and certain levels of, other games, so what deals can be made that don't cost the artist, the record labels, the brands as much as they did traditionally, because maybe they're a snippet of, the tactic that they want to execute, but they have real solid results and eyeballs watching them.
Yeah, and let me get your quick thoughts on this too. We're talking about YouTube, Twitch, all these other platforms. I personally have a fear that if the live streaming, just giving the content out there, continues to happen at some point, that in the consumer's mind, we're going to give them the exact same kind of standard that we gave them when Napster dropped on the recorded music business. And I heard from a guy named Jesse Kirschbaum, amazing experiential marketer, new agency. He told me that there's going to be 3 stages. You got stage 1 of experimentation, which is really what you're talking about, experimentation on the brand side, technology side, etc. 2, which is kind of what we're in right now, is on the charity side. So you're looking at like Jersey for Jersey, and a lot of these other kind of charity events. Dance Music is Back from Red Light Management. But then comes the monetization side. And the only person right now that I've seen tried the monetization side has been Erykah Badu, where I think she was charging like $1 or $2 per ticket. But I really want to get your opinion on when we get to that monetization point, assuming that Live Nation is correct, and we may not see, hopefully this won't be the case, but if this is the worst case scenario, 18 months of no concerts, how do we go about monetization, and how do we get a consumer to sit at a screen and justify them paying $15 to $20 a ticket or even higher?
Yeah. Great question. And by the way, Clay, you know that nothing I say is quick. So I'll try to be quick. But I believe I am totally against the monetization of charging an attendee for a live stream right now. I think that it's a very dangerous thing, in the sense that people still generally look at the artists and the big brands as, having lots of money, whether they do or do they don't, or whatever their situation is. And I think that it'll rub people the wrong way. And then I think the other side of all that is what you said, is a consumer truly going to sit at their couch or their table watching a live stream over and over and over again? What I mean by over and over again, not that artist, but different artists all the time, or a festival all the time. And so I think that, brands and artists, they should forego the monetization and look at other ways to make money, but you're really doing it for goodwill. And once again, a good example, and as I said earlier, they are a client of mine, but Pasquale, the owner of Insomniac, they are doing, live streams with their branded festivals. Electric Daisy Carnival, Middlelands was this week. And I'm not pitching them, but he's doing it well. He's doing a live stream. He's gotten all these great artists. They're doing it right out of Insomniac's headquarters. They're monetizing it through selling some merch, discounted packages on all merch, and they're giving goodwill to their fans. And I think that comes back in spades. I think that the fan and the consumer is going to be like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go to Insomniac festivals. They gave me all this time and all this content and all this positive energy and music during a time that we were in a deep, dark place.
That's such a good point too, because I think at the end of the day, like, everyone's going to come out of this seeing how everyone behaved during this time. And there is going to be people who, stepped up to the plate and did what was best for their audiences, their fans, their demographics. And there's going to be people who just falter behind it because they were too scared, or they didn't want to invest the time or the effort or anything like that. But that's a perfect example of really doing what is important to continue to serve your audience in a way that makes them feel like you did something worthwhile. It's memorable. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and one last note, and I apologize, but I think what a lot of people forget, and I commend Live Nation for doing this, is the crew and the artist crew. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the crew from riggers to production people to ushers at stadiums and arenas, they're not making millions of dollars. And when they're not touring and they're not working concerts or festivals, they're not making money. So I think that if an artist does a live stream, I think it's okay to put up a GoFundMe thing or something like that, but have the money go to their crew, have their money go to, Music Cares, that is funding crews. I think that people need to remember that the artists, if they were pretty good with their money and they made good money, they should be able to withstand this short, abrupt, pause. I mean, let's do some goodwill for the teams that make their live events happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I mean, Live Nation, I think, stepped up huge. With their crew nation. I mean, honestly, all shout out to Michael Rapino and that whole team
Absolutely.
there. Because I think that's a really important point. I mean, I've heard estimates that the touring business as an economical generator does billions and billions of dollars for local economies. I mean, look at what South by Southwest brought to Austin. From an economic standpoint. So I think that point is really important. I mean, Jordan, please jump in here. I mean, we're curious to get your thoughts on these topics as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, the first thing that we see, with streaming along the DSPs decreasing, if I had to just take a shot in the dark at that, I would say that a lot of people, when you're kind of limited to staying in the house, and you can't travel anywhere, or let's say you can't vacation, a lot of that time, a lot of that travel time, whether it's like in a car or on a plane and things of that nature, is allotted towards you on your phone, listening to Spotify, Apple, Tidal, and the streaming platforms. And I think now that because we're in the house, the visual platforms such as YouTube, such as Netflix, and platforms like that are really winning right now. I think a lot of the focus has either been put into educating audiences or entertaining them, but also to what Justin said. I mean, I truly think that we're in a bit of a renaissance period. I mean, you're never going to be able to ever again get this close to people without even being in the same room as them. And what's happening is that a lot of these high profile people are actually, doing educational things to give back right now for goodwill and charity. Educational things such as, what Issa Rae is doing with radio. She's doing like a live stream to answer questions about sync and music licensing, or Love Renaissance down in Atlanta. I believe they did the same a day or two ago. So you're seeing a lot of these high profile labels and brands just saying, hey, let's just go business to consumer and do it in the name of goodwill and charity right now. And it's really increasing and enhancing their visibility as a brand. But then also one thing I also wanted to point to is that if you kind of know a little bit of history, back in I think it was 1919, after the Spanish flu. After that period where, many Americans unfortunately lost their lives due to the Spanish flu, that brought in the Roaring '20s, that they call it. And of course that time period was a creative period, a music boom, a style boom, a fashion boom that happened in America that influenced music for, decades and decades. So right now, I think we're a little bit kind of in a similar position to that. I think right now, because of the educational and charity things going on via whether it's Live Nation, whether it's radio, or whether it's other brands and other platforms, that because it's visual and we can give information directly to our audiences, people are going to benefit. On the music side, I think people are going to create more engaging music, better, more quality of a music as well. And I think artists are going to be more so developed in what they want to talk about. I think their message is going to develop from this pandemic that's happening as well. So that's just some of my thoughts about like the DSPs and traffic towards YouTube and Netflix and things of that nature. But that's just kind of where I think we are in a snapshot right now.
Yeah, no, I sit here and agree with that. Well, I think we hit through all of our key points here. But I just want to, give everybody, first off, thank you so much, all you guys, for coming on today. I think the conversation was super insightful, for not just labels and managers and artists, but a lot of brand marketers as well. But I want to end on this. Can you give us like one prediction that you think brands and artists or labels really need to pay attention to post COVID, that you think is going to be really critical to make adjustments to now for whatever the impending future is going to look like? And we'll start with you, Justin.
I think that wow, you got me kind of speechless. I think I go back to authenticity. I think that artists and brands are going to have to be more authentic than ever before. And we believe this to be what the basis of experiential is in anything. So, but I think we're all going through this global crisis together. And I think that if you're authentic in the music you make and the way you market your products and the way you produce your live events, and that goes with everything from ticket prices to, free giveaways. I don't know what it encompasses everything in my mind, and just being authentic and real with your fans and your consumer is I think is gonna have to be paid even more attention than ever.
And Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. If I had to just take a guess, I would say one prediction that I have for post COVID is the music artist as an entrepreneur, more so. And I think right now what's going to happen is artists are going to have to become resourceful because of the pandemic, because of the digital, the prominence of the digital right now in terms of virtual events, right now having to interact with their consumers in the digital sphere. I think that artists are going to more so turn towards establishing different businesses, such as whether it's merchandise, whether it is syncing their music into gaming in the brand space, or whether it's just essentially saying, hey, I may not need to go to a label right now. I can go the independent route. Because of the engagement right now happening in the digital space, and they can say, hey, I can make my money through just direct Instagram or Facebook or YouTube to consumer marketing, and I think that's what's going to happen. If I had to have one prediction, I would say the music artist turning more so into the entrepreneur.
I couldn't agree with you more. Well, Justin, Jordan, I want to thank you both for coming on Fast Forward, presented by CAD Management and Austere.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you both, for your time.
Awesome.
All right. Well, tune in next week. We'll be broadcasting on Tuesday, May 5th. Wow, it's already May. Good God.
Can you believe it? I know. So
Yeah.
Moving forward, we'll be doing these on Tuesdays. And, if you're still here to the end, thank you so much for watching. We're really grateful. And yeah, tune in, keep up with us on social media. We created a little Instagram account for this, but you can also follow both of us and our accounts for our agencies. And we will announce our next theme and topic on this LinkedIn channel that we have going on in the newsletter. So please do keep up with that.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.